The nurse handed a note with a prescription to the millionaire and forbade him from attending the wedding. Upon reading it, the banker froze. The sun bathed the hospital park in autumn rays, making each leaf glow with a vibrant color. Mary smiled happily and playfully kicked up some orange leaves with her foot. It had only been a couple of months since she started working at the hospital, and she had already fallen in love with this alley. It was beautiful in any season, and the patients loved to stroll here. "Oh, here comes our Mary," one of the patients joyfully shouted. Always in a great mood. The patients adored her, they said her smile helped them recover. But Mary wanted to truly heal people. She had dreamed of becoming a doctor since school. She couldn't secure a spot in the free department, and there was no money for the paid one, nor anyone to help. Until recently, she lived with her stepfather, who did nothing but drink, showing no desire to get a job. Helen, Mary's mother, had gotten together with him when Mary was in middle school. Back then, he still held it together, drinking only on weekends or holidays. But when Helen suddenly died due to a blood clot, everything changed overnight. Her stepfather started drinking almost every day and was soon fired from his job. That's when Mary's nightmare began. He started bringing friends home, drinking around the clock, and demanded that his stepdaughter set the table for them. He could wake her up in the middle of the night and send her for vodka, but Mary flatly refused to do so. She even had to run away a couple of times and spend the night in a neighbor's basement, which she had once stumbled upon and found to be a refuge. Fortunately, someone had left a pile of wooden crates there, from which Mary made herself a bed. Everything ended when she got a job as a nurse at the local hospital. She immediately decided to put an end to the nightmare, and with her first salary, she rented a small but very cozy apartment on the outskirts. It was, of course, far from her workplace, but at least no one was arguing or demanding booze and money. Every day started calmly and peacefully, and now Mary found herself waking up, rejoicing each day. The work wasn't what a girl her age dreams of, but Mary was happy. She secretly hoped to catch up on the necessary subjects in a year and try to enroll again. Meanwhile, each morning, she gladly went to her therapy department, feeling that she was helping those who needed it. The staff accepted her as one of their own from the first day. The nurses were all much older, many could have been her mothers or grandmothers. They felt sorry for the delicate red-haired Mary and tried to take on the dirty work themselves, saying it wasn't proper for her to change men's diapers or carry bedpans, for which she was very grateful. In return, Mary could mop the entire floor of the department in one go, doing it for all the nurses at once. Miss Roberson, who was responsible for distributing food to the patients, always discreetly packed any leftovers into a small bag for Mary, quietly saying, "Here you go, my dear. When you get home tonight, you won't need to spend money on food. You'll save a bit. No one is helping you, after all. I know how much you want to enjoy life while you're young." This was indeed a helpful contribution to Mary's not-so-large budget. However, not everyone in the hospital was as kind to their colleagues. The entire therapy department seemed to be unofficially divided into two parts. The first part was the junior medical staff, consisting of orderlies and nurses, who worked for low salaries and did everything selflessly, from the heart. The second part was the doctors, who were willing to do anything to please Kevin Ross, the head of the department. As specialists, they were almost perfect, but on a personal level, they were ready to destroy each other to earn the boss's praise. A couple of times, even Sharon Graves, Mary's supervisor, seeing Kevin Ross from a distance, decided to ingratiate herself. She tried to raise her voice, looking for a reason to find fault with Mary's impeccable work. But Mary calmly answered all her questions and, turning away, went on with her duties. She had gotten used to standing up for herself since living with her stepfather, and now it served her well. Mary was finishing cleaning the corridor when an unusual commotion began in the department. A patient was being urgently transferred from the only double room to a triple. The head nurse was almost running, urging Lori, the orderly working the same shift as Mary, to hurry up. "Lori, why are you dragging your feet?" the supervisor yelled at her. "I'll fire you if you don't get this place spotless in half an hour." As soon as she left, Mary approached to find out what the rush and shouting were about. Lori explained that they were admitting a wealthy man, reportedly a well-known businessman in the city. Sighing, the orderly added, "Who brought him here must be the devil himself. He should be going to a private hospital. I don't understand what he's thinking. People with that kind of money usually avoid places like ours. But whatever, it's not for us to judge. I'll just keep scrubbing to make it look like an apartment. Mary offered her help, but Lori, knowing the supervisor wouldn't like it, politely declined. In just half an hour, the ordinary double room was nearly transformed into a single luxury suite fit for a wealthy man. From the head's office, they brought in beautiful table clocks, a kettle, and a microwave. They borrowed an unusual floor vase and a picture with a couple of glasses from the head nurse. Somehow, they even managed to find an old but functional television. Standing at the exit of the room, Lori surveyed everything and, with a sad smile, said, "I'd love to spend a couple of weeks in a place like this, but it seems our kind doesn't get such honors." Just as she finished speaking, the supervisor rushed in. Instead of words of gratitude for the swift and perfect work, she yelled, "Make sure to cater to this patient any desire, any whim, anticipation, everything. He has so much money that he could buy the entire department if he wanted to. Make sure everything shines. He must be satisfied with everything," she hissed before leaving. As soon as she was gone, Lori grumbled angrily, "Sure, we do all the caring and pampering, but guess who reaps the benefits? Do you know why she and Mr. Ross are so agitated? They're expecting a big fat tip from the patient, and will get nothing but crumbs. Come on, Mary, let's go before they bring this big shot in." They left the room, closing the door behind them, and went about their respective tasks. Mary didn't see the new patient being brought in, but she immediately noticed the heightened tension around his room. Doctors and nurses kept coming in, some to check his condition, others with IVs or medication. Sharon Graves took control, ensuring the room was cleaned more thoroughly and frequently than the others. Appearing in the hospital corridor once again, Sharon called Mary over and ordered her to clean the banker's room. By this time, everyone in the therapy department knew that the new patient was the owner of the city's largest bank. Mary's eyes widened with fear. She wanted to do anything but go into that room. She always imagined bankers as fat, sweaty men who were picky and mean, but she couldn't disobey her boss. With a trembling hand, Mary knocked on the door, opened it, and timidly asked for permission to clean. A pleasant male voice responded, "It seems clean enough, but if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. Rules are rules. Please come in." Mary looked at the speaker and nearly dropped her bucket in surprise. Instead of the anticipated fat man, a handsome gentleman lay on the bed. The first thing she noticed was his beautiful and very kind eyes. For a few minutes, Mary stood rooted to the spot but quickly regained her composure and started cleaning. Unexpectedly, the patient spoke in a friendly, good-natured tone, "Imagine, my wedding is around the corner, and here I am, stuck in the hospital. I thought I'd just stay home with a fever for a couple of days, and look how it turned out." At that moment, the patient was seized by a violent cough. Quickly removing her gloves, Mary handed him a glass of water. As she helped him drink, she said, "Don't worry. We have the best doctors in the city. They'll have you back on your feet in no time. For now, it's best if you rest. Sleep and good treatment are most important." She carefully adjusted his blanket, and he smiled at her gratefully before closing his eyes. For the rest of the day, Mary couldn't stop thinking about the new patient. She was struck by how, despite his wealth, he had chosen to come to their hospital and spoke to her as an equal. Even though she was acutely aware of the vast gulf between them. That evening, as Mary left the hospital, David was already waiting for her. For the past 6 months since their first meeting, he often met her after work. Their relationship couldn't yet be called serious. They simply walked around the city, went to the movies, and Mary enjoyed their time together. But she was still afraid to take their relationship to the next level. It seemed to her that they didn't know each other well enough, and she kept asking David to wait. "Why are you so lost in thought today?" David asked, putting his arm around Mary. Almost relieved by the question, she began to speak. "Oh, David, you wouldn't believe what happened today. They brought a banker into our department with suspected pneumonia. Everything went crazy, everyone's running around trying to please him. They gave him an entire room, the head even brought his TV from the office. They say this banker has so much money he could buy the whole hospital. I thought he'd be old and grumpy, but he's not like that at all. He's just like any other person and talks to me as if we've known each other forever." David stopped, and taking her chin in his hand, asked playfully, "Hey, has my sweet little mouse fallen for this money bag?" Fortunately, it was dark, and he couldn't see the blush spreading across her face. "Oh, stop it," she brushed him off. "What are you talking about? I have you. Come on, why are we standing here?" That evening, left alone, Mary caught herself thinking she couldn't get the brown-eyed handsome man from the hospital room out of her head. She really liked him, even though she had only seen him a few times that day, once when she came to clean and the second time when the head nurse asked her to bring him a meal, clearly not from the hospital kitchen. This time, as soon as she entered the room, the patient smiled warmly and suggested they get acquainted, saying it would be easier to communicate while he was in the department. Tyler, that was the banker's name, asked Mary to come by more often, saying he would be very glad. At that moment, she was ready to stay at work indefinitely and keep vigil by his bedside around the clock. The next morning, as soon as she started her duties, she decided to check on the previous day's patient. The door was slightly ajar, and Mary reached for the handle when she heard a woman's voice. An unseen stranger was speaking. "Arthur, stop being a coward. Your task is only to get the medicine we talked about. I'll discreetly add it to the groom's wedding drink. Half an hour, and it's done. I'll be a young widow, and you, my loyal and devoted friend, will soon become my husband. Do you understand that in this case, you won't just be someone's partner but the rightful owner of everything he has?" The speaker laughed unpleasantly, and her companion, after a pause, responded, "You do realize this is risky. If it all comes out, we'll be jailed, and I definitely don't want to end up in prison." "Listen, stop freaking out," the woman snapped angrily. "Be a man. I've thought it all through and even talked to the attending doctor. He said Tyler will be allowed to go to the wedding. We'll just blame it on the doctors, saying they didn't treat him properly, didn't catch it in time, and the disease affected his heart." Tyler's heart stopped. "Have you changed your mind already? We both planned this out, and this hospital is a perfect opportunity. You have no idea how hard it was to convince him to come here instead of a private clinic where they would have fought for their reputation and dragged us to court. With these simpletons, it's a piece of cake. A couple of bribes were needed, and you'll see it'll all be blamed on the hospital. Now hurry up and find the medicine. We're running out of time." Mary instinctively took a step back, fearing the speakers would come out and see her. She couldn't believe what she heard wasn't a dream. She stood frozen for several minutes until Laurie's voice brought her back to reality. "Mary, good morning. Why are you standing in the way? Move aside." Turning around, Mary saw the wealthy patient in a wheelchair, skillfully maneuvered by Laurie. She helped wheel the patient into the room and settle him on the bed. Meanwhile, she tried to discreetly observe the guests whose conversation she had overheard. The woman was very beautiful, tall, and slender, with perfect makeup and an impeccably fitting pantsuit. She looked like a model Mary had only seen on TV. The young man was her equal, tall, with a neat beard and a clearly expensive suit. He looked at Mary with some disdain, sending chills down her spine. She quickly left the room, but the overheard conversation lingered in her mind. Seizing a moment, Mary approached Laurie and whispered, "Laurie, do you happen to know who those two were in the rich guy's room?" Squinting cunningly, Laurie whispered back, "Why do you ask?" "That was his fiancée. He told me while I was taking him to get an x-ray that our doctor promised to get him back on his feet quickly so he could marry and dance at his wedding. The handsome guy with her is his, what do they call it? I forgot the word, well, the one who handles some business with him. You better not get any ideas, girl. Such a beauty will break your legs in no time." Mary put on an indifferent face and snorted, "Who cares? I have David. Besides, he's so handsome and rich, he needs a fiancée like her, and I'm just a poor mouse, as David says." Sighing, she went to clean the neighboring room, but mentally she was already thinking about how to find the time and tactfully tell the rich man what she had overheard. When she had figured out a plan, an opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. "Oh, Mary," Amanda, a young nurse, interrupted her thoughts. "Please help. I'm completely swamped.
Can you take this prescription to our elite room? You know, where the banker is?
Tell him the doctor said to prepare for discharge, but that he must buy these medicines and take them as a preventative measure.
It's all written there. Thank you in advance.
I have to go put in 4 in the old lady in room 4. Mary grabbed her hand and said fearfully, "Wait."
You know it's against the rules for me to do that, Mary protested. On one hand, she wanted to quickly inform the patient about the conspiracy.
On the other, she was very scared to do so. But her friend was insistent.
Come on. What's the big deal? Just a minute, hand over the paper, and you're free.
If I don't put this 4 in that nasty old lady in room 4, she'll go straight to the head doctor again.
Don't be afraid. Go.
No one will find out. Amanda practically pushed Mary toward the banker's room and ran to the other end of the corridor.
Mary hesitantly knocked. Tyler, seeing her, smiled and said cheerfully, "Can you believe it, Mary? I'm lucky it didn't develop into pneumonia."
"Thank God, and I'm feeling much better."
"Come in, don't be shy. What's that in your hands?"
Mary relayed everything the nurse had told her and, before handing over the prescription, took out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. She had spent a long time thinking about how to tell Tyler what she had overheard and decided to write everything down. It was more convenient that way to hand it over without staying in his room for too long, something their superiors scolded them for. It seemed to her the most convenient way to convey the information. Mary wrote it right after Tyler's visitors left, but the opportunity to give it to him came only now. Handing the papers to Tyler, she quietly said, "Forgive me. I know it's not my place, but you shouldn't go to the wedding.
Be careful, it's all written here."
Giving him the papers, she quickly left the room and tried not to think about what had happened. When it was time to do the scheduled cleaning in the banker's room, Mary nervously stepped through the door, avoiding looking at Tyler. She didn't know how he would react to her note but decided to act as if nothing had happened. For about 5 minutes, he watched silently as she diligently dusted every surface. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "You know, Mary, after carefully reading your note, I first thought you were crazy. Then I thought, forgive me, that you had fallen in love with me and were trying to stop the wedding. But after much thought, I realized there was some truth in your note. You described everything very precisely without knowing many things. Thank you for daring to inform me. But the wedding will go on, and I will attend. Pamela wants our celebration to happen quickly because she's pregnant, so it will be as planned." Tyler winked at Mary and added sadly, "Don't worry, beautiful. Everything will be fine. Whatever will be, will be." At that moment, Mary felt like falling to her knees and begging Tyler not to go to the wedding. She felt so sorry for this kind, intelligent, and handsome man, but she understood that she couldn't stop him. Mary looked at him with pleading eyes and quietly said, "But can a loving person wish harm? She loves you, right?" Suddenly scared by her own curiosity, Mary fell silent and walked toward the door, but the patient's voice stopped her. "You see, Mary," he began kindly, "life is such that sometimes you can't figure out what's really happening. Pamela and I got involved very quickly. In reality, I haven't been in business that long. My father managed everything before, but age caught up with him, and it became hard for him to manage the entire empire. So, he decided to pass everything on to me. It was at one of these receptions that he introduced me to Pamela and her parents and confided that he dreamed of joining our families. Their fortune is no less, if not greater, than ours, so my father wanted me to marry quickly so our businesses could merge. You know, I don't understand why I'm telling you all this. It seems because in our circles, it's not customary to share personal things. But with you, I feel like I can speak freely without fear." Mary looked at Tyler and said, "I also enjoy talking with you. Maybe you should reconsider and postpone the wedding." The banker smiled sadly and replied, "No. Everything is already decided. My father is seriously ill, fears he won't live to see his grandchildren, and is rushing everything. So, I'll make him happy.